social research. After Alexander Yeremenko, there would be also others joining these discussions. So they are the famous sociologists. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I would like to probably start with the slide where we would show the essence of what we are talking, the polls. So recently, it's not the first announcement, but recently a few Ukrainian sociology research institutions showed these results with the numbers where Yulia Tymoshenko more or less has 20% of the votes. As well, we have the second person, it's Volodymyr Zelenskiy, who is a comedian, but working for the group of Ukrainian oligarch Kolomoisky at his channel, but famous for many years. And then Poroshenko has just 10%. Later we have Hrytsenko, who is from the civil position platform with 9%. A bit less is the opposition bloc representative Yuri Boyko. The Radical Party of Oleg Leshko, it's just a bit more than 7%, while the Ukrainian prominent singer Vakarchuk has 5 and 5. Then there are some people, maybe the foreign audience didn't know, it's about the Rabinovich, who is also, let's say, opposition candidate, but more close to the former government. As well, we have the Lviv mayor, who has up to 3% and is in the race. Can you explain what it means? Because some of these people even didn't announce that they are running, and especially people are confused, not just with the high position of Yulia Tymoshenko, but the fact that Volodymyr Zelenskiy, a comedian, is the second. But you even don't know why you put them into these polls, as well as Sviatoslav Vakarchuk. Svetlana?
Well, why Vakarchuk and Zelensky is in the poll is the
I
question.
think that the companies are taking, it's a decision of the company, but still, you don't expect those people, like, I don't know, they are not politicians.
Well, first of all, when we're talking about the elections, we should stress that we don't have the real list of candidates yet, which would be official. So we have to wait. So far, what we have is different options, which are tested by the actually different companies and different clients of sociological companies to figure out who has better chances, to win in this electoral race. So it means that what we have right now is just a kind of this, set of alternatives, and it doesn't mean that we can say exactly right now who will win in the second turn. We are talking about the probabilities, we are talking about the chances, and we are talking about the probable chances. And only after the real list of candidates will be actually registered at the electoral committee, then we will be talking about the chances of the real candidates.
And Olga?
I would like to stress a few points. First of all, with this very, very preliminary results.
Yeah.
For my opinion, before the mid of January, we cannot seriously take in attention any ratings. First of all, because it's not real election company start. Second, we don't know the real name of the candidates. The third, it's not very interesting for people yet as a result. And around half of the people, potential respondents, for whom sociological company try to apply, they don't want to answer on the questions. It means that we can receive only half of population opinion. And also, maybe I'm wrong, but I guess this proportion which you can see now, this proportion about those who plan to participate in the election. And we have also around quarter of the answers that they don't want to participate in the election or don't decide it yet. This is also gave for us explanation that it's very, very preliminary and we don't know what can be happen. And one small comment about the Zelensky and Vakarchuk, who are not real politicians. Maybe it's a joke from some political consultants, but another reason that Volodymyr Zelensky is a hero of the quite famous movie, Servants of the People, of the population, Servants of the People, which means he became as a president in this movie, and maybe it gave some ideas to include them in the list. And for today, it's not decision of the sociological company, it's decisions from the orders, it's decisions from the people who would like to see what can happen if Zelensky will participate.
Yeah, I would like to stress this moment too.
Yeah, just explain us, because I think people don't understand whose idea is that and why.
Yeah, we should actually stress the fact that sociological companies, they do not create lists. Lists are created by our clients, and by international law and actually rules, we cannot always, announce who are the clients of sociological companies. But fortunately, we can announce some data by their permission, which is actually good because it helps audience to see maybe what's going on in this area. But sociological companies in this aspect, they do not create lists and so on. There's a lot of these discussions around why sociological companies put those people on the list. Well, guys, it's not what we are doing. What we are doing, we are actually studying public opinions on what's going on in some specific moment.
I would still like to bring back the photo of Volodymyr Zelenskiy, just probably particularly for this audience, to explain, because Volodymyr had been active in the Ukrainian public sphere for couple of decades, so he's really the celebrity of Ukraine, well known in Russia and working for the TV channel 1+1, but kind of has his own company which done the most popular comedy show in the country, but the company is owned by the 1+1 company is owned by the Ihor Kolomoisky, who is a Ukrainian oligarch, and also the reason I'm pretty I think confident to say that, of course, you can say that the channel shows a bit the position of its owner, and he's very critical to everybody. So all the experts usually say that, that's easy for him because he can use this satire in the time of the distrust, and that's what is appealing to the people.
Well, you see, when it's about the opinion of public about specific images, it's also about the media influence. And we know from previous experience that actually popularity of specific people when it's about politics is defined to a large extent by their media presence. The question is actually, is it possible to convert this media presence into votes? And we have no clue what may happen under certain conditions. So it's again, sociologists and people who are talking about electoral prognosis, it's not people who are trying to do some magic. It's about numbers.
There is different explanation. You see the level of trust for the politicians is very low among people. And then they can see very attractive person, very friendly person, very famous person like celebrities. The people who has protest opinion for any politicians, they would like to provide with answers. Oh, it can be Zelensky. In reality, it doesn't mean that during the real election, if he will participate as a real candidate, he really will have this level of support.
Because
I would also say that we have already with us Volodymyr Panioto, who is the Director General of the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology. With us on the line, also his company, his institute was also involved in the research. So I would like to, also ask the question to Volodymyr. Good evening, Volodymyr. Do you hear us?
Good evening. I hear you, but unfortunately I can't see you.
Anyways, the main you're here. So we are discussing now also, first of all, the recent polls on the presidential elections. But there would be more or less the two questions in one. First of all, at this stage, November 2018, to what extent we can say that those results, with Yulia Tymoshenko being, twice more popular than current President Poroshenko, having her 20%, way more than, for instance, in September, and having this, that these are the probable results, or it's too early to say? On what factors it depends? As well, I would still say the fact that you have these celebrities like Sviatoslav Vakarchuk and Volodymyr Zelenskiy, to what extent, while doing this research, it's just the matter that they are popular, so people name them, or it's really the fact that the people are willing to vote for these people?
It seems to me that the population, or maybe journalists, are very too much interested in this data, and really what we can say from our all last survey that really Yulia Tymoshenko is the leader, and the second place divide 5 persons. Volodymyr Zelenskiy, Petro Poroshenko, Anatoliy Hrytsenko, Yuri Boyko. And a little bit less have Lyashko and Vakarchuk, but still they have some chances to be the second and to be in the second part of the elections. That in our country, the television see 93% of population, and it means very much, and that's why maybe Volodymyr Zelenskiy and Sviatoslav Vakarchuk, they are really popular persons, and for our reality it means maybe more than the other things. But I would not. I would say that in other countries, and really, I can't see why saying Lyashko is better than Volodymyr Zelenskiy. He's also a showman to some extent, and saying the Reagan was the actor, and the Schwarzenegger also. So it seems to me that it's not a big problem that some popular person take part in the election. However, we don't know their programs. We know nothing about their, even we are not sure that they will take part in the election. But they also don't know a lot of about programs of other candidates, because the population usually not take part, not take attention to their programs, and we have leaders party, and the sympathy to the leader of the party means for us, for our population more than their programs.
Volodymyr, I would ask you really to stay a bit still on the line, and I would like to have the question to all and also you to respond. It's more about the results of Yulia Tymoshenko, because what we feel now that on the for instance, in the summer, there was still the difference, you know, of course she was ahead of Petro Poroshenko, but, you know, now I remember, I looking at the results of September, she's doing twice better, you know, so she has now more than 20%, which is finally something. It's more substantial than 10. You know, Petro Poroshenko rates are also growing, you know, so those who had like 6 and 5% now having around 10. But how we can read it is really Tymoshenko is growing. Is it really because now anytime I read any analytics, everybody says that it's clear that before people were kind of looking who can beat Poroshenko in the second round. Now everybody said like who can beat Yulia Tymoshenko in the second round. So is any tendencies that her rates are just growing, and clearly the difference between her and the current president is getting bigger?
If it's question for me, I can't see very big differences, because the rating of Yulia Tymoshenko depends to a great extent from the list of persons, and also depends on the number of persons who will take part in the election and who have not yet decided. And in different surveys, we have, unfortunately, the sociologists have some a little bit different maybe standards. We start to try to establish the unified standards, and several days ago we had a meeting in Kharkiv about standardization. But up to now, saying one of the some of the sociological center train interviewers to insist on the answer of the question if they have not yet decided. The interviewer asks, but still they say that they don't know, but they say still if you think about it more, what is your intention? Maybe to vote for whom you will vote. And other centers, say our institute, decided that it will be not good if we have so undefinite persons in our sample. So in our survey, usually we have 30% of undecision, another survey 20%, and it's also influenced on the number of the percent of all persons in the list. And some, if you compare not full, we must have full identity in the list to say about dynamic. Then now we have 13% of Tymoshenko and 8% of Zelenskyy, only 5% of differences, and we have the error about 3-4%. So situation is still very undefinite.
I would ask the colleagues to also respond on that, also on the Tymoshenko question, and as well we just showed the graph where it showed that it's difficult to answer for 22% of the people who were answering the polls whether for whom they would vote. 15% decided not to vote, and there are up to 5% to the other candidates.
Yeah, in reality, I don't see that support of Tymoshenko are growing up from September to November. If I based on the results from my company, which we have the same questions, standard questions, and when I can compare with questions, and we have the same sample procedure, it means that I can compare with data. It was about 11% on the September, for example. It means that it can be between 10 and 13, for example. Now we have 14. According to our data, it's also between 12 and 15. It means that with difference, it's within the standard bias, I can say. Of course, some people who start more ready to provide answer. Maybe some people make any decision, but it's still not talk for us about the growing the rating. The same about the Poroshenko. His rating was growing up a little bit after the summer period, because during the summer period he not so often on the TV. And since Independence Day, end of August and September, he became more and more often on TV. And immediately we can see growing up to 2-3%. It means that people start to recognize them as an active person, and some people who before maybe say, I'm not decided yet, start to support him. And what we, in reality, I just can repeat, before the real election company, which can start end of December or beginning of January, it's very difficult to talk about the real rating for now. And one more comment, when we also ask people, what is your, could you change your decision for support your candidate which you select before? And more than half of them mentioned yes. We can change our decision.
Svetlana?
Yeah, because you see, I would like maybe to focus not on numbers, because numbers quite vague right now.
Yeah.
But right now these numbers, they don't matter that much. But what really matters is strategies behind these numbers. First, let's take into account what actually people are really concerned about right now, because this is actually what is important as the triggers in the messages from different candidates. So when we're talking about, for example, peace, when we are talking about the order, legal order and order in the country, when we're talking about the justice, when we're talking about the economics, prices, salaries, wages, and also communal tariffs and all this stuff around, this is what is the core of messages which are coming from the candidates. So when we will have real list of candidates, also what will differentiate at really in important level all these numbers, it's how they are going to convey their messages to people through media or connecting directly to public and so on. Because, again, like you see, it's also what is important, for example, at level of international economics and politics. Who of them are seen by people as real leaders who can stay in front of Vladimir Putin and talk to him directly for interest or to defend the interest of Ukraine? Would it be Zelensky? Or it would be someone more seasoned in politics who can really, to deliver this very powerful message?
My question also on that would be it's about you mentioned the issues. So, for instance, recently we know the whole story behind the autocephaly. This is the new thing. There were always economy, and the war was there for 5 years. That's something new, and everybody believes that. Of course, it's very helpful for Poroshenko if Ukraine will get this autonomy. Does any data show that, or it just considered like a common sense?
Well, it's again I'm afraid that even how this question maybe is formulated, it's a kind of this general issue with how media are interpreting situation in the country. It's not about Poroshenko or Tymoshenko. In my opinion, what is really important, it's about what will happen with country, who will be leader, who will be able to lead country to the better future in terms of life quality, in terms of international positions, and so on. So when it's about the Tomos and autocephaly, yes, this is very important for Ukraine. It is very important for society. But also we have a whole bunch of other issues. And actually all these together lead us to the question, what is the team behind each candidate, Prime Minister, and so on and so on.
We try to ask people who from candidates can solve the problem, the peace, the war, the discussion, the dialogue with Russia, to solve the economic situation problem, to make a decision about the development of economy and some other issues. And no one candidate received more than 20%. No one. It means that there is no figures, there are not leaders who can unite Ukraine as a leader who can solve any kind of the problems.
That would be my follow-up question. Also, I know Volodymyr Panioto is still with us on the line. So the question would be that, for instance, we didn't mention, how about this opposition bloc and the candidates who clearly are currently in the opposition to the government and by many people could be considered, for instance, the pro-Russian, like Yuri Boyko, or like, for instance, Rabinovich, and people coming with different narratives that, for instance, both Poroshenko, Tymoshenko, and everybody else. So to what extent, what percentage can we really understand how, because for a lot of people, I know also among our foreign audience, there is a question, to what extent, what chances they really have, or, to get into power, to get in the second round. And as well, these low figures, is it abnormal to have that low figures for the candidates 4 or 5 months before elections? Because somehow, for me, it sounds sometimes ridiculous when the leaders of your country are supported, according to the polls, with 7%, 8%, 10%, which is a bit, which for a lot of people is a sign of, distrust to most of them.
It seems to me that the situation in this election is really unusual. We never had so small differences between leaders and other candidates of in any election and in any the political struggle before. So now it would say Boyko, Muraev and Rabinovich have some agreement, and only one person, Saint Boyko, will in the list. He have all chances to become the second with Tymoshenko, but I would say that even now we have more enough time before election that even Tymoshenko with 13%. You mentioned percent to the which was calculated to those who will decide to vote, and I say about percent to the whole population. It's only 13, 11, 14 and so on. With this percent, it's also possible to change a lot of before election. I would insist on that the discussion about dynamic and the who may be in the second round of election, it would be more reasonable when we will have the full list of candidates.
And also your explanation also about these low figures. Should we really feel like what strange people don't
support?
You see,
in reality, it's impossible to have a so long list of candidates and have a high level of support. In reality, we have one leader, then we have team of the second level group, and then we have team of the third level group, and some long list for the less than 1%. Maybe it can change in the future, but it's what we have for now in reality. And that's why when we are talking about the possible second round, we just have only Tymoshenko with somebody from this second level group. We never even include the third level group for this discussion because their level of support is quite low for now. And talking about the figures, I would like to stress one more problems for Ukraine today. It's statistics. Because the statistics of the population is a huge problem for sociologists. If we look on the data from the Central Voting Committee, we have only data for 2014 years, and we have some kind of distribution between oblasts. If we look on the data from the State Statistical Committee, we have another distribution between oblasts, and they are not comparable. They differ, and it means that impact of the south and eastern part can be larger according to statistical data and lower according to the voting commission data. And this also provides some misunderstanding between different ratings from different companies. And Volodymyr already mentioned about the round table in Kharkiv, which we have last week for discussion. And our idea that sociological companies have to sit together around the table and discuss what structure of the population we have to use, how we can include in our mind the internal migration, the external migration, the internal displacement people, because all of this influence of the structure of the voters.
To what extent?
I absolutely agree, and I would say what you should stress right now is our appeal to the actually a governmental statistical department, like, guys, please do finally this big, enlistment of the population, which you haven't been doing for the last 15 years, because it's a huge problem.
Especially we have internally displaced, especially we have
like you see, for example, a ministry for different situation, they have one statistics, and for example, Ministry for Social policies have different statistics, which might be actually different in like 500,000 of people. Like, that's not normal situation when different ministers, different governmental structures don't have real statistics. What they should do right now is actually do what they should do by law each 5 years at least, and not been doing for last 15 years. Provide actually country with real statistics on population.
That's probably something important for everybody to ask. I would still also ask Volodymyr to talk, because we speak into the foreign audience. And I know for the particular foreign audience, there is a personality whom people know. It's Sviatoslav Vakarchuk, a Ukrainian singer, because sometimes he is more talking to, for the last months, more foreign audience rather than the Ukrainian. So there are a lot of usually questions to what extent he has chances. Sviatoslav Vakarchuk is a leader of the most famous Ukrainian band. People usually say it's like a Bono of Ukraine. He used to be in the Ukrainian parliament after the Orange Revolution, but left. And for now, he doesn't declare. For many, many times, he would approached by journalists and ask if he would run. He says he doesn't give open answer. What was interesting that a lot of people like him but are not ready to vote. That is also the question. But having already like November and having this kind of 5.5%, do you think that at this stage, if a candidate having this list has this low amount, is it doable for a candidate to get into the, like second round? Can we, from what is the starting point to be like included into the race? Or 5.5 is too low, or it's enough? Volodymyr?
From my point of view, it depends to a great extent from the media. You see, in the beginning of the far enough before elections, and when some of the candidates became the dangerous for the main political forces, they succeed to a great extent to destroy his reputation as with the media. The more close to election, the more importance media. So it depends on support of the big media. If some media or owners of this media will support him, he has some chances. If not, they will destroy his reputation.
I can say that Vakarchuk has very high level of awareness among people, and this is his plus, because practically everybody knows who is Vakarchuk. The minus for them is because he has more support from the young people, and young people usually are less active during at the day of voting. But for sure, when at this spring, when we first time received in this list Vakarchuk and Zelensky, both of them have the same practical level of support. But after that, Vakarchuk mentioned that never really provide answer, would he go or not. Zelensky started to play with this like a game, and practically every month we receive some notes. Oh, maybe, what if I became a president? What is the plus, what is the minus? He started to play with the people and media support of them. Yeah, I fully agree with Volodymyr on that. And it means that Vakarchuk still has chance. It doesn't matter the level of support for now, because as I mentioned already, it's not start really election campaign. But the big questions, what will be his decision and what kind of support he will have. And of course, the team. It's another big issue, because the people today are looking for the political leaders with a professional team.
Yeah, and also I would like to bring attention to the reasoning behind the voters' choice. In last study, which have been done by several companies, actually question was to people, what is your reason to vote for some politician? And main reason to vote was the answer politicians are given to the question concerning the economic issues and social and political issues. And we technically never heard any like real, very specific position from Sviatoslav Vakarchuk. Well, there was some trials to touch different aspects. Some maybe plays with a kind of concept of light concept when it was about Western public of so-called enlightened authoritarianism, which didn't play well to Western public in Harvard, for example, so it was taken back. Now it's about the institutions and so on, but these are very general things. Well, right now, Ukraine really needs very specific answers. What will be done in the short-term perspective to solve huge basket of really important questions concerning economic and also international issues, and what will be done in the long-term perspective, not just in terms of we will build nice country and so on. Come on, we had this in communist times, like, you know, this bright future and so on. We need very, very specific strategy. Well, and also he actually has quite strong opponent. It's Yulia Tymoshenko, and she is so far the only candidate with very specific program. We are not touching, like, you know,
what is in this program?
The essence of this program. Is it good or bad? No, but it's at least we have, like, you know, steps which will be done to get from point 1 to point 2, and this is what should be done by each candidate actually, who really would love to be, like, you know, involved into this process of leading Ukraine to some real point when quality of life will be in the center and so on. So it's again, I would stress right now not maybe on numbers, but on the strategies, on the teams behind, on the reliability, on experience and readiness to be the political leader in the difficult times, still difficult times, and to talk at big level, like, you know, to top politicians, to convey really important messages for Ukraine, building Ukraine as the very sovereign and strong country in this actually very, very complicated, you know, geopolitical context we are living right now.
Thanks a lot. I should say that obviously a lot of our audience, a lot of people among our audience, they would like to know the answer, but it's usual. So thanks a lot for the discussion, which really explaining those figures and what we can expect. So we had with us Volodymyr Paniotov, Director General of the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology. Thanks a lot for being with us on the line. As well, we had Svetlana Khudka, who is a Research Director at Social Indicators, and Oksana Balakirova, Olga, I'm so sorry, Olga, and Olga Balakirova, who is the chairman of the board at the Ukrainian Institute for Social Research. And I'm really think that we had given some answers to our audience, and I encourage all of you also go to our webpage en.hromadske.ua. You can see more data. You can see that, you know, also our discussion are supported by the data. You can read the, you know, names of the companies doing this research and make your own research further. And go to our Twitter at Hromadske and our Facebook search Hromadske International. With that, I say you goodbye for today and see you in a week.